Hello everyone, this is Mr. Brain Junkie here, and today we'll be talking about a monster action film called Monster Truck. Be ready for some spoilers ahead. Somewhere in the wilderness of United States, a mining company called Terravex is trying to take out the oil that's underneath the entire area. The company owner, Tennyson, has come to the mining facility personally after receiving news from their head biologist, Jim, that their operation has run into some problems. Apparently, they encountered a large water deposit that's blocking their drills, which can possibly be harboring life, but Tennyson gives the order to go through the liquids anyways. However, when their cameras penetrate into the large reservoir, they quickly discover moving organisms inside the area, and the water begins to burst out from the immense pressure. The liquids rush out from the pumps and destroys all the equipment on site, while spitting out large creatures that crash lands onto the ground. The people are shocked to see the mysterious life forms and quickly try to capture them right away. They put the creatures into large containers, but their head of security, Mr. Berg, tells them that one of the animals is still missing. Tennyson wants the monster to be found immediately, as he doesn't want the entire operation to be shut down by the government due to the foreign creatures. The next day, while working on the new engine for his truck, a young man whose name is Coley hears a strange noise from the outside and decides to take a look in the junkyard. He walks into the piles of cars and sees the oil containers broken open. Suddenly, all the buckets are knocked over, causing the man to run away in fear as he rushes inside the garage and tries desperately to close the doors. He goes into the crawl space to hide, but begins hearing a giant creature that's moving on top and sees a massive tentacle sliding inside the metal gates. Coley tries desperately to escape, not wanting to become a victim like the girls in those Japanese movies. He eventually manages to open the hatches and escapes outside, but not before locking the metal doors and preventing the monster from getting away. The man calls the police right away and notifies them about the creature that he saw, but when the officers opened the hatches, there was nothing inside except for the empty oil container. The senior officer, Rick, tells his friends to wait outside and begins scolding the young man immediately for what appears to be a prank. It turns out that the sheriff is actually the stepfather of Coley, and he thinks that this is nothing more than the boy's way of rebelling against him. After the man leaves in anger, the main character realizes that something is odd, as the monster only seems to be attracted to places that has oil. The next day, Coley takes a bunch of oil containers and places them inside the car crusher, while purposely spilling them onto the machine so that the monster would be lured here. He takes the controller and waits by the side, hoping that the creature would take the bait. Very soon, a bunch of tentacles appear behind the car crusher, and a giant creature crawls onto the platform. The monster grabs onto the oil container as it lies down like Winnie the Pooh, and Coley is surprised to see that the creature seems to be very harmless. The man goes closer towards the animal as it drinks all the oil like it was made from honey, and not noticing the human's presence at all. Coley watches the creature intriguingly, but the monster is frightened by his sudden appearance, causing the man to break the controller and turning on the machine as a result. Coley tries to fix the remote, but nothing seems to be responding as the car crusher begins to drop onto the unsuspecting creature. With no other choice, the man runs towards the monster and begins pulling its giant tentacle while trying to save the innocent animal. The machine continues to crush down into the creature, but Coley manages to pull out the giant monster just in time before it gets turned into a massive pancake. The monster looks at the human in anger and grabs onto Coley before roaring furiously at the man, but quickly notices what happened to all the containers and realizes that it was saved. The man runs away from the monster right away as the creature lies back down like a couch potato, and Coley realizes that it's barely able to move on land. He yells at the giant squid to not eat him, which the creature seems to understand, before he grabs the oil container and begins feeding the monster to gain its trust. On the other side, Tennyson's henchmen have arrived inside the police station to inquire about any strange calls. Despite the sheriff telling his men to not say anything, one of the officers reveals that a prank call regarding a large animal came from the junkyard that Coley works in. At the same time, the main character puts the giant creature onto a large dolly so that he can drag it to the police station to prove his innocence. However, when he comes back with the truck, the monster is already gone, as it uses the dolly like a wheelchair while chasing after the dog. Coley runs towards the creature and tries to stop it by dragging on the rope, but the monster notices this and easily throws the main character away like a rag doll. The man gets up and tries to stop the giant squid, but the creature is already gone as it begins to head towards the garage. Coley chases after the monster right away, but suddenly, a bright light shines towards him from behind as two large vehicles arrive into the junkyard. It turns out that Burke has decided to pay Coley a visit, demanding to know what the main character saw last night. The man lies about the encounter to protect the creature, but Tennyson's henchmen forces themselves into the garage. Luckily, the monster seems to be nowhere in sight, but Coley quickly realizes that the creature is hiding inside his truck. He tries desperately to hide the animal's tentacles while distracting Burke and his man, claiming that he heard a noise coming from the opposite side of the junkyard. His plan quickly backfires when the monster begins moving the truck towards the people, while Coley tries to stop the vehicle right away. Luckily, he's able to fool the people by pretending to push the car and manages to get away from the garage without being suspicious. His problems are not over yet, as the monster does not seem to listen to him no matter what he says, which forces the man to faceplant right onto the ground. Things become even worse when his friend Meredith comes to visit him for a study session, and he realizes that it's too late to pretend to do push-ups to save his dignity. He tries to make the woman leave, but this only angers her as she came all the way here to study for his convenience. Their arguments are interrupted by the roar of the monster, which immediately alerts the henchmen to their location. With no other choice, Cody decides to push the girl into his truck and pray that the creature will start the vehicle and run it without killing them both. Luckily, the monster begins moving the truck away from the people, while the man holds onto the steering wheel like his life depends on it. Things quickly go wrong when their vehicle jumps off the road and bounces on the hills, as the monster is having the time of his life and giving the riders a near-death experience. The creature is able to dodge all the trees while jumping over the ground and waving its tentacles, eventually making it towards the grass field in one piece. The man rushes out immediately and screams at the vehicle in anger, which only manages to confuse the woman even more. Coley realizes how bizarre it is to explain what's going on and decides to show the woman by telling her to look under the car. Meredith peeks inside the vehicle and sees the monster, causing her to fall down while screaming in fear and managing to scare the creature at the same time. The woman has a hard time believing what she just witnessed, but Coley assures her that the animal is harmless. The man brings the girl back to her home alongside the monster, which refuses to leave the truck. With no other choice, Cody decides to take out the giant squid by force, as the creature never seems to behave while inside the vehicle. However, the man quickly discovers that the animal actually stops moving when it can't see what's in front of it, which gives him a bold idea of doing something completely different. He begins modifying the truck by considering the creature inside and designs the blinds for the monster so that he may control the speed. As he continues to work on the vehicle, he discovers the mechanism to which the animal is using to turn the axle and decides to use it as a way to power the entire truck. The next morning, the girl goes into the barn and is surprised to see that Cody has kept the creature inside his ride, even naming the monster Creech. The man enters the truck to go for a test drive, and the monster begins running the vehicle like a real engine as it races down the hills, but also adding a flavor of personality as well. However, the girl thinks that they shouldn't keep the creature forever, as the animal must be missing its home by now. Cody has a hard time believing this as he takes numerous selfies alongside his new friend, but eventually agrees that they have a responsibility of returning the animal home. The man decides to bring the creature towards his biological father, who turns out to be one of the miners working for Terravex. They go towards the gas station to fill up, but Cody has trouble figuring out where the petroleum goes as he doesn't want to put it in the wrong hole. Things become even worse when Cody's rich classmate drives in as well, and the man mocks the main character for having such a broken truck. Their attitude changes quickly when they hear the revving from the main character's vehicle as it charges onto the road like a sports car. However, Cody feels that something is wrong as Creech begins driving chaotically across the traffic like a preschooler who ate too much sugar. Meredith quickly realizes that it must must be due to the gasoline that Coley gave to the monster, which contains a ton of chemicals inside. They rush across the highway like a maniac and cuts across the traffic while running into other cars. The squid monster tries to take over the vehicle by using its giant tentacles, which makes the girl extremely nervous as she begins breathing like she's having childbirth. The vehicle rushes into a second-hand dealership where the salesman is trying to scam the elderly, but gets a moment of instant karma as their truck runs over all the cars. They crash into a van that's filled by paint while turning the salesman into a clown, and they're able to disappear before the police officers arrive. The two makes it towards the mining site of Terravax, and Coley goes to greet his dad, who he hasn't seen for a long time. The man takes them into his trailer while explaining to them exactly what he saw on the night, and Coley realizes that Creech must have came from underground. Before the man can tell his father about the creature, he quickly finds out that his old man has betrayed them to the company by calling the security. The conflict immediately becomes physical when Burke tries to take away the main character by force, but this greatly angers the squid monster as it begins revving the truck. Coley takes the chance to break free and tells the girl to get onto the vehicle, while Creech begins spinning the truck across the field. Burke realizes that the monster is hiding inside the automobile as all his men are trying to grab onto the vehicle. Coley manages to get back onto the truck, and he decides to go straight towards his father's trailer as he rips the building into pieces. They head towards the exit right away, but not before running into the sheriff, who is shocked to see his stepson creating trouble once again as all the security chases after them. Coley rushes towards the downtown streets while Burke and his team follow closely behind, and the man decides to lose the pursuers by going inside a small alleyway. He manages to jump over the obstacles by using his new contraptions, causing Burke to crash into a garbage bin as they rush off towards the exit. Before they can escape the area, Coley quickly runs into his stepfather, who begins pursuing him as well. The man has no choice but to run away once again as he drives inside a small street, but when the officer arrives inside, he's surprised to see that his stepson has disappeared already. What he doesn't realize is that Coley is hiding above his car by climbing the walls like Jackie Chan and managing to trick the man into leaving the area. However, the chase is not over yet as they're quickly discovered by Burke once again, forcing them to run into a dead end as the man pursues them closely behind. Luckily, Coley is able to use the truck's upgrades, which opens up the sides, allowing the giant monster to climb onto the building while Burke looks at them in disbelief. They begin to drive across the roof and jumping over the windows while completely ignoring the laws of physics at the same time. The two eventually makes it back down onto the roads as Coley tries desperately to get away, but only to find out that the enemies are right behind them. The main character rushes towards the nearest train track while the massive train is approaching the intersection, as he plans to lose the pursuers like he was in Fast and Furious. He rushes towards the railway like he was Don Toretto while living his life a quarter mile at a time, and he manages to jump over the train's cargo as he lands on the other side. Coley celebrates his victory by doing donuts on the road and leaving all the people behind in the dust. They make it towards a cabin that belongs to the girl's father and decides to use the location as a safe house for now, while Coley thanks the creature for saving his life. At night, while relaxing by the campfire, the main character talks about his disappointment in his father. The girl assures him that this is okay as he wouldn't be the awesome person that he is today if his father wasn't so awful. Coley smiles at the girl for the comforting words while he goes inside the truck to cry alone. Surprisingly, the giant monster tries to comfort the man by using its tentacles and proceeds to drive him towards the lake before jumping into the water. Coley is shocked to see that the creature is glowing brightly while swimming inside the lake, and he thanks Creech for helping him this whole time while promising to bring the monster home. At the same time, Jim is beginning to experiment on the creatures that he captured and shows Tennyson that the animals are very intelligent as they can learn like a hive mind. However, the man is not interested in this as he only cares about his profits in the mining operation. He plans to put poison into the underground water system to kill all the monsters and blackmails the scientists to be part of this operation. The creature seems to understand that their life is in danger and begins to cry out for help, and this causes Creech to pick up on their location as it starts hearing their voices. The next morning, Coley notices notices that the monster has disappeared alongside his truck and wonders why the creature decided to run away. Luckily, the main character left his phone in the vehicle, and the girl is able to track the monster's location by using her mobile device. They chase after the truck immediately and is shocked to see that Creech has decided to go to the headquarters of Terravax. The two sneaks into the back door and sees that the truck is in the yard, but the monster is nowhere in sight. They decide to go into the building and eventually makes it towards the basement, where they enter into a laboratory and sees two giant containers with tentacle monsters inside. Suddenly, they begin hearing something knocking from the outside wall and realizes that Creech is trying to break in to save its friends. However, this quickly alerts the security guards and they charge inside to shoot the monster with tranquilizers, eventually managing to knock out the creature as it falls towards the ground. Coley looks hopelessly at the monster as he's taken away by the guards, and they finally meet Tennyson in the office, who forcefully deletes all their photos of the creature. The man threatens the main character to leave this alone before telling his security guard to take the students away. As they're about to leave the building, their escort is interrupted by Jim, who takes them away on the pretense of Tennyson's order. The scientist tells them in secret that he won't allow his boss to kill the entire species for the man's greed, and promises that he'll do everything to help their cause. Realizing that they need more vehicles to rescue the monsters, Coley secretly goes towards his classmate's home and takes the truck while the man is too busy playing video games. The girlfriend sees this and walks towards the window, but makes no effort to warn her boyfriend, clearly showing that money will never buy true love. However, the people still need another truck for the other monster, and Coley decides to pay his friend Sam a visit. It turns out that the boy's father owns a large car dealership, and he's more than happy to help the main character after learning about the monsters. Coley takes one of their best looking trucks and begins modifying the vehicle for the creatures, and by all working together, they're finally able to finish the upgrades by morning. At the same time, Jim watches carefully as the workers load the monsters onto the semi-truck, and the man takes the chance to hijack the vehicle away from the driver. The scientist brings the creatures inside the car dealership, and they're finally able to release the squid monsters from the plastic containers. Cody is exhilarated to see his friend once again, and Creech goes towards the other tentacle monsters and embraces them in happiness. It turns out that the creatures are actually a family that was separated due to the mining operation, and the people are glad to see that the monsters are reunited. Very soon, the giant creatures go into their trucks as the people plan to bring the tentacle monsters back to their home. They head towards the mining site by going off-road, but Burke and his men are quickly able to find their location and catch up towards their trucks. The enemies begin surrounding the people and trying to box them in while shooting at Jim's vehicle. Luckily, the girl is able to interfere by pushing her friend away and grabbing onto the enemy trucks while flipping them into the air, which disables the shooters right away. Coley realizes that they can't outrun the pursuers on the empty fields and begins luring the enemies into a dense forest. They're able to dodge the incoming obstacles thanks to the monsters and jumping over the trees by using their springs. Meanwhile, the sheriff has received news about the pursuing trucks and decides to go there immediately. The man rushes towards the area, only to see that his stepson is being chased by Tennyson's henchmen once again, forcing the officer to rush onto the hills and try to stop this chaos. However, the man quickly crashes into Burke and severely damaging his vehicle. The enemy takes the chance and begins pushing the police car towards the cliff, eventually causing Rick to fall down into the ditches. This completely destroys the officer's vehicle and forcing him to continue on foot. On the other side, the enemies pursue closely behind the monster trucks, and Burke manages to push Coley off balance, which causes the man to dangle off the giant cliff. Luckily, Creech is able to save the main character in the last moment and recovers the vehicle back onto the road. They continue towards the mining site and quickly sees a chemical truck in front of them, making Jim realize that those must be the poison meant for killing the entire species. The team begins chasing the giant truck, but are forced to stop immediately as they run into a trap that's set up by the enemies. This corners the people with nowhere to run, as the monsters have a great fear of burning due to their petroleum-based diet. Before they can figure out what to do next, a massive mining vehicle rushes towards the area while pushing over the enemy trucks and making the people run for their lives. It turns out that Rick decided to help Coley after all, as he lowers the back of the giant truck and clearing the way for the group. The people sees this and quickly rushes onto the platform and jumps into the air as they eventually crash lands onto the cliffs. Surprisingly, the monsters are able to stabilize the vehicles while rushing down the mountain and bouncing off the rocks. They are eventually able to make it to the bottom in one piece, and they quickly catch up towards the chemical truck from behind. Coley takes the chance and charges onto the giant vehicle as he flips the entire truck onto its side. However, they quickly notice that a second truck has already arrived as the people are getting ready to release the poison. They charge towards the pumps immediately, but Coley is quickly knocked over by Burke, who refuses to let the monsters go. This allows Jim to rush towards the machines alongside Meredith and managing to chase all the workers away. They go out immediately to shut down the pumps, but quickly realizes that it's too late as the pressure does not seem to be going down no matter what they try to do. At the same time, Creech manages to slowly flip the truck over like a giant turtle and charges directly towards the enemy, but is quickly overpowered by the opponents. Burke pushes the main character towards the cliff as the monster tries desperately to fight back, eventually going on top of the enemy's truck as it tries to run over the vehicle. However, they're quickly forced back once again as Coley tells the creature to leave, but Creech refuses to give up as it grabs onto Burke's truck and throws it into the air. The vehicle flies towards the giant pumps and crashes right onto the machines, causing all the pressure to be released and giving the man a taste of his own medicine. The girl notices that Coley is in trouble, but before she can do anything, the man falls into the giant hole and lands inside the underground water. Luckily, Coley is rescued by the squid monster as it brings the man onto shore alongside his broken truck. It's quickly revealed that there are many more creatures living inside the water system, and they came to thank the main character for saving their lives. Coley says goodbye to his monster friend as the creature begins swimming away, eventually disappearing into the water and finally rejoining its family inside their home. Sometimes later, the entire mine is shut off by the conservations and Tennyson is finally arrested by the police. Coley manages to fix the truck alongside his stepfather, and the man drives the vehicle with his girlfriend as they slowly enter into the sunset. So what do you guys think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like my videos, please press like and subscribe for more. I'll see you guys next time.